Welcome to the SRS Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron J. Babiar, and I'm the Training Director of Support Raising Solutions. Whether you're a new ministry worker or a veteran looking to increase your competence and confidence, Support Raising Solutions seeks to bless you in your quest to be a spiritually healthy, vision-driven, fully funded Great Commission worker. Once again, I am blessed to be joined by Andrew Nobauer of CCO. Andrew has a lot of great experience and wisdom and just thoughts about ministry partner development in general. And we brought him on today to talk about having a tactical plan, an annual tactical plan for your MPD. Now, Andrew, I don't know about you, but I come from a long line of people involved in public service and law enforcement and military. So is that, when you say tactical, that kind of excites me. That's not exactly what you mean though, is it?
No. So what I mean by an annual plan or an annual tactical plan is it's an adoption of looking at what am I going to be doing at certain times of the year? What are the tasks that I need to check off in my plan?
Yeah. Now, tell us a little bit about yourself before we dig too far into that. For people that haven't heard you before, where do you live and where did you grow up? And I don't know, favorite hobby that has nothing to do with ministry.
Favorite hobby that has nothing to do with ministry. Okay. Well, I'm going to be very Canadian then. Okay. So I currently live in Ottawa, Ontario, which is about 4 hours northwest or northeast of Toronto, Ontario. Yep. And there's currently still snow on the ground. It's April 3rd as of this recording, and I still have to wear my winter boots. So that is wonderful.
By the time this records, because we're trying to record a couple months out, hopefully there's going to be someone somewhere laying on a beach getting a sunburn as they're hearing you talk about snow.
I hope I'm that person lying on the beach. Okay. And originally I'm from Vancouver, British Columbia. So the other side of the country, 2 hours north of Seattle. Okay. And my favorite hobby, hockey. I love the Vancouver Canucks, and I follow them not quite religiously.
Are they going to win it all this year?
No, they are not going to win it all. The only thing that they might win is the number 1 draft pick. They are atrocious, but they have a 19-year-old who he's making me hope for the future. Let's just say that.
There you go. Well, I feel the same way about my beloved Chicago Bulls. All I want them to do is lose so they can get a good draft pick.
It's an interesting thing, fandom, when you're hoping that the team you love is just lose.
Well, let's go ahead and dig into our topic. So, tactical MPD plan. Start unpacking that for us.
Sure. So, an annual tactical plan has been probably one of my things that have kept me fully funded the longest. So really they came out of a need where most of us who are working in ministry, we're getting so caught up in what we're doing on the day-to-day. There are souls in front of me. I'm looking to save. I'm looking to preach the gospel. I'm helping others to encounter God in a new way. And an annual tactical plan really helps save the missionary from themselves, so that they're not getting so caught up in ministry that they're really forgetting about their partners. They're not forgetting about tracking with their donors, about keeping them up to date with what's going on in the ministry.
Yeah. So, because we really want people to view their ministry partner development as it's a part of their ministry. It's not a distraction, and it's not something to forget about.
Exactly. And I've seen it too many times where I'm meeting with a missionary and they're about to head out for an MPD interval. And they're saying, Andrew, I feel so guilty. I forgot about my donors this year. I didn't take any time to let them know. And now I'm nervous about having to go see them.
Flashing lights. That's a problem.
Yeah, exactly. A deer in a headlight is often the look that I get. And so what CCO did is we instituted something called an annual tactical plan. And so as many people, you've worked in ministry too, especially with SRS. I mean, we were talking about these podcasts. You have a plan. Your okay, these are the times, these are the dates that I want to do this, and this is how far out I want to have this podcast. And an annual tactical plan is something similar, but for your MPD. So it's in the spring, in the summer for CCO, we'll take stock and we'll send this plan out to our missionaries and say, okay, here are the 12 months of the year. What are you going to do in your MPD during that time? And then we will collect them back come August and approve them and say, okay, well, you could do this here, you could do this here, or no, you're doing too much. No, you're doing too little. You need to track with your donors a little bit more, to really give us and help our missionaries to make sure that they're looking after and ministering to their donors.
Well, we're going to have some people listening to this that they don't have anybody necessarily who's that organized that gives them oversight. So for somebody that just lost a little hope, I just want to encourage you. This is a fantastic idea. And Andrew, I know you're not done explaining it yet. It's great. But this is the sort of thing that you can take notes on and you can arrange. Even if you're not a super highly administrative person, you can kind of put together a bit of a roadmap, a little bit of a plan with simple monthly tasks that, maybe it's the first of the month or the third of the month, but you just know once a month you need to open that thing on the pre-assigned date that you're giving yourself and track through. So anyway,
Exactly.
Sorry, Andrew, I wanted to interrupt you just so we didn't have people go, oh, I'm not part of a big organization. This podcast isn't for me. No,
Yeah, for sure.
It's for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, for what I would say, even if you're part of a smaller organization, maybe you don't have the same organizational structures in place, is what you could really do is we all have, or hopefully we all have access to an Excel spreadsheet or even a Word document, and you just put 12 months of the year, January through to December, and you say, okay, in January, this is what my goal is. This is my monthly goal. In February, this is my monthly goal, and really take some time to go through each month. It doesn't have to be complicated, and say, okay, in January, I know that this is the slowest time of my year. So I'm going to take a little bit more time and I'm going to send thank you cards to all of my monthly donors in January because it's a little bit slower. In February, actually things are crazy for me. So what I'm going to do is schedule a ministry update to get sent out at that time. So through MailChimp, something we use often is MailChimp because it gives you the versatility, and it's free online. It gives you the versatility. You can write up a ministry update and then you can schedule a date that you want it to go out. And so in your slower seasons, you can say, oh, okay, like I'm going to write my ministry update in January about what the Lord's been doing. And then I'm going to say, hit send and schedule, and it will go out February 10th. So that way your donors are still hearing from you, even if you're really busy in where you're going. And so it's by sending out, having these monthly goals that you're really able to accomplish a lot. Aaron, I mean, I'm sure you probably have monthly goals that you're working on in your MPD as well.
I do. But what's funny is I think there are a lot of people who think I'm just like the most organized person who, is just all over this and never makes mistakes. And that's why I'm leading, and training SRS. That's not true. That's not true. I have to work at this. In fact, if I can just tell on myself, some of my homework I've given myself, I just got back from a closed country at the time that I'm recording this, and I'm behind. I'm behind a few days at least worth of work. And so last night I just planned I needed some catch up time. I usually try not to work at night, but there were some other things going on anyway where it just made sense. And I spent about an hour and a half last night from like 8 to 9:30 at night just working on this type of stuff. And honestly, Andrew, it was kind of fun. Like it doesn't come naturally to me, but because I have a plan, I was able to kind of open it up and just work through my plan, do a lot of catch up. I didn't even get all the way caught up, but I got, a lot more caught up, and I feel good that, number one, I am regularly communicating about how God's blessing through the vision of the ministry and some of the work that I do. But also, number two, I'm not forgetting about any of my supporters. I'm not forgetting to pray for them. I'm not forgetting to occasionally do like a personal contact. And it really does come back to, what is it I want? And then backing up from there. Well, how do I get there? And backing up from there. What steps do I need to take? And backing up from there. Where, I'm down to a point now where, again, it's not that I'm the most organized person in the world, but I do have notifications set up that hit my email inbox every day that basically says, hey, dummy, do this, this, and this. I can be genuine and do those things, even though, if I'm being fully honest, I didn't wake up thinking, oh, that's right, I'm going to follow up with Bill today. His mom is having a lot of health problems, and I'm going to pray for him, and then I'm going to message him and go, hey, Bill, praying for you. How's your mom? That I wish that stuff came more naturally to me, but I don't think it's any less genuine that I have over time really built up a system to help me with that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm similar to you, Aaron. I'm not the most organized. Like, my favorite thing is vision. It's talking about vision and like ideas of, this is what you can do, this is where you can go. Sometimes I feel that God called me to this role because it constantly will humble me, and realizing there's so many areas for me to grow, especially in organizationally, and especially with tracking with my donors. But the beauty of having these plans is, when it comes to taking your MPD time, you don't have to sit down and be like, okay, well, what do I have to do right now? Because I'm sure that there's a lot of missionaries where, and I know in my early years as well, I would be like, okay, I'm taking my MPD time at Friday at 2:00, and then Friday at 2:00 rolls around, and I get to my MPD time, and then I'm like, what am I supposed to be doing right now? I'm like, I don't know, and I'm not effective during that time, and then I feel guilty at the end.
Yeah, you're sitting there looking at your computer like, I meant to do something, but what was it?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, and more than I care to admit, I've had that experience. But when I'm doing this annual tactical plan, when I'm taking that time, earlier on in the year, and I'm putting things into my my Google Calendar to say, okay, hey, Andrew, do this. And then I put a backup thing the next day to say, did you do this? Because I know how easy it is to get caught up in the press of ministry.
You're like nailing yourself to the wall. Like, you're your own accountability partner.
Yeah. It's I literally one time had there was somebody I was so nervous to call, and a lady that supports me, and she is the most wonderful lady. She, every time we come over, it's coffee and cookies, and we have a blast. But for whatever reason, I was terrified to call her. And so I said a thing, it's like, call Nancy. And then half an hour later, I had another alarm that said, did you call Nancy? And then after that, it was, good job in calling Nancy.
You're even your own daily affirmation. You're incredible. Well, it's great that you use Google Calendar. I want to point out to people there are other notification systems, and I know that there's a couple of different even MPD softwares that will help you with that. I know that MPDX, you can build those in. I know that Karani uses, like, you can actually set that stuff up. I'm not so sure about DonorL for TNT. I'm not saying they do or they don't. Part of the problem anytime I get talking about different MPD softwares is the good ones are always changing. Like, they're always updating them and adding things. So whatever I say that is true today on April 3rd, it might not be so true come July when this plays. But the point is, there are different ways to get notifications, and however you get that, whether it's a pop-up thing on your phone or on your computer or even an email, do the thing that you're actually going to respond to it, because, and I don't know if you have this issue too, but Andrew, I get notifications all the time on my desktop about people's birthdays. I don't know why. I can't figure out how to turn it off. I just close them just once a day. I'll have a bunch of them and I'll just close them. And I'm not the birthday card king. And these aren't even supporters. Like sometimes it's people I met 5 years ago and I've never talked to them since. It's like, hey, it's John Doe's birthday. And I'm like, so? The odds are 1 in 365. It's everybody's birthday today. But
yeah, exactly. You're speaking to my heart. I had I've had the same personal email since high school, and so sometimes I'll get emails. It's so and so's birthday, and then I'll look at it like, who's that? Right,
totally. So I guess the point is this: whatever notification system, if you need that, which I highly recommend it, but if you know that's going to help you, use a notification system that is actually something you're going to pay attention to. It's not something you're going to, just blandly like fly on by, but it almost needs to be the sort of thing where when you get a notification, you need to have the personal responsibility of acting and reacting. If it's not that moment, soon thereafter. Even so far as to, sometimes I've got notifications where I was like, wow, I need to clear that out, but I also can't do that in this moment. I'll take an extra 10 seconds and set myself an alarm for, 4 o'clock later that day that says, make sure you do this thing now. So there's different ways of handling that. So I'm glad that you brought up that topic, because quite honestly, we live in a day and an age where it's smart to have a smartphone. It's smart to use MPD software. And honestly, it's smart to use notifications to work for you and helping you with your tactical plan for MPD.
I want to interrupt this podcast for a brief heads up. This is Steve Shadrack, author of The God Ask. Support Raising Solutions is running a contest to win an SRS swag pack. Go check out our past podcast episode, number 29, to get details on how you can get involved and possibly win some fun Support Raising Solutions swag, including a $100 gift card.
If you're enjoying these podcasts and they're hitting on topics that you love, consider following Support Raising Solutions on social media for everyday biblical and practical support raising advice as you're in the process of raising your support. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Support Raising Solutions and on Twitter at Support Raising.
I would encourage all of our listeners to find what works for you. As you were saying, like I have a coworker of mine who we use TNT, and when his TNT tasks pop up, he does them. Like there's just no delay. For me, I find that I see my TNT tasks. It's not as motivating as if I have translated tasks into putting it into my Google Calendar, because then the time comes up, I have a lot of time for it, and I feel the need and being, I think for a lot of people, strategic in your MPD time is so helpful, so that, you may have 2 hours to allot for it. But if you've gone ahead and you've said, okay, in these 2 hours, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, it is much more motivating to get to that time. And you're much less likely to put that off, because you actually know what you're going to be doing. And especially if there's a name on there, it's a lot harder to push a name than it is call supporters, call them.
I love a lot of what you said there, also including the fact that you brought the international flavor of saying Z instead of Z. That was fantastic. Thank you for doing that. Keeping it real, keeping it global. So, all right, brother, let's change direction a little bit. I know that sometimes people, they get fully funded and they think they're good to go forever, and yet they realize there are certain asks that they might need to continue to do even throughout the year. Maybe it's somebody who, they only give special gift, like say last March, and then that they'll probably get again for next March, but you need to like ask them in advance of March, or that every 12-month gift is going to be a 14 or 15-month gift, if that. So there's different types of things that can come up throughout the year, even for the fully funded person, where they occasionally need to do asks. So unpack that for us.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's such a normal part of our role in that, you have 60, 70 people that are supporting you, and life circumstances change. And sometimes we have a bit of attrition, or we have these special gifts that come in once or twice a year. From certain donors based on their preference. I mean, always the goal is to try for a monthly donation, but we know that sometimes just depending on that person's circumstance, they like to give through kind of more of a lump sum. And so the great thing about having an annual plan is you can look and say, okay, well, I know that Pastor Bob, he always gives in February, or this church always gives in February because that's when their fiscal ends. Well, I know that if they're going to give in February, I know that they have to go and bring it to the parish council. And the parish council meets in January. That means that I, in December, need to start thinking about asking for this February gift. Because what we can see and what's happened, and I've seen it before, even in my own life, is how if I make the ask when the gift was made, they might not necessarily be able to kind of just cut a check and give it to me that month. Sometimes you have to go through these different channels, or people want to think about it based if like bonus season is a big thing.
Yeah.
And so you want to make sure that you're asking them so that when bonus season comes, they're actually able to your gift is there. Not,
I'm going to interrupt you really quickly because I actually, in an hour from now, have a lunch with someone that's exactly their situation. They gave about a year ago a pretty significant gift. They said they would probably be willing to give again in the future, but only around bonus time. And so I made the notes. I put it in my MPD software, and I backed it up to about a month, 6 weeks ago. I had a thing that said, hey, if you want to get on the radar, you better do it now. I called them and said, hey, I'm going to be in a different country and I'm doing all this other stuff, but I really want to connect with you when I get back, because I knew that would be right around that 11-month time, because they get their bonus in the 12th month, right? So I did exactly what you're talking about. And of course, we don't pre-rehearse these podcasts. So just so you know, I'm not always the good example, but in this case, I literally, and actually technically 45 minutes from now, I'm sitting down with a couple to do this very thing that you talked about, because we're just 1 to 4 weeks away from when they get their yearly large bonus.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of an annual plan, is you don't have to rely on your memory in order to prompt you. You're putting it in your plan. You're thinking ahead proactively, and it's going to pay dividends. And then also a great thing in annual plans is, we can all account for a little bit of attrition in our monthly donors, because sometimes life change. I've literally had people stop because they've passed away. I've had people stop because they've lost a job and they've moved across the country. And so you can kind of account for circumstances to be changing in people's lives. And so if you think to yourself, okay, well, I know over the course of the year, I want to make sure to account for some sort of attrition, and also for the fact that some of my expenses are going to be going up in this upcoming year. So in February, or I should say maybe in November, you can think to yourself, okay, I know that I want to start making increases asks as we're going into the Christmas season. And what that will do is then that will set you up so that if you do lose any support during the winter months or just throughout the course of the year, you're making consistent asks. I know a staff member that works for CCO. He's very, very organized to a T. And so sometimes he'll bring the oddest numbers and they'll say, I need to raise an extra $37.50 to hit my goal this month. I'm like, I would have just said 40, but sure. And so, but he's proactively thinking, it's like, well, who do I know that started 2 years ago that maybe I could be asking for a little bit of a lift? And you're thinking proactively so that you're not in a situation where you have a big expense coming up and all of a sudden you're short $200 a month.
Yeah, hey, that's a good point, because I think what we're saying here is it's not that this is super difficult stuff, but there are things that are going to happen pretty much every year. And if you can just sit down and think through when those things are and plan for them, then it leads you to a plan. Like I'm gonna kind of surprise a few people here, but get ready, pull out your calendars. Every year, right around, if not on December 25th, is going to be Christmas. every single year.
Every year?
Every year. It doesn't change. And so you can back up from that and go, oh, hey, wait a minute. That's the week before the end of the year. Then that means I want to communicate this, and that means I want to communicate that. And anyway, you can just kind of build from there.
Yeah, exactly. We CCO runs a conference every year for our college students. And so from December 28th to January 1st, I know, because it's been the truth for the last 13 years, that I'll be at the Rise Up conference that we're putting on
every year.
Every year. It's just is what it is. And then, but unfortunately, 3 or 4 days before that is Christmas. And then, I'll take some time off and go visit my family in Vancouver. This has kind of been a rhythm of my life: vacation before Christmas and then working the conference.
Okay.
I had my conversion because of the conference. It's a beautiful thing. I'm so happy to go every year. But I know it's going to be really hard while you're working a conference, as I'm sure, Aaron, you're probably not doing too much MPD tasks while we're going to the Support Raising Solutions conference. You're emceeing the conference.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard. And also your donors want you to be present to your ministry. And so what we'll do though, or what I'll do in my later on years, is I've started to say, okay, well, I know what the theme for the conference is going to be. I know who's going to be speaking at the conference. So I'll start prepping a ministry update for the conference to say, this is the theme this year, this is where it's located, and I'd love for you to participate in the conference. This is the link to where the live stream is going to be right now. And then I schedule that to go out the first or second day of the conference. And all they have to do for my donors to participate with me in ministry is click on that link and they'll get to see the conference. And it's just it's a thoughtful way that I can get them to participate in ministry with me, but I'm doing it 3 weeks beforehand.
Yeah. And for people that are like, oh, I'm not sure if my people would be interested. Well, first of all, we're not sure what you have and what your conferences are and aren't. But if it is something that's fairly, it's not too specific and they might be interested in it, that's such an easy win where you can say, hey, here's this thing. Now, who knows the numbers? I'd be shocked if anybody got more than 10% of their supporters to actually get online and watch something like this. But the numbers are out there that a lot of times people end up joining teams, staff ministry teams, after they were first supporters of the ministry. That's not always the case, but we know that can be an onboarding thing. And so if you have a supporter who's particularly interested, you never know. They might be a future staff member, and God is big enough that even if you lose that person as a supporter for whatever reason, because they're a staff member, I think God has plenty of money. He's going to lead you to other people.
Yeah, his bank account is quite full. And I'll even just say too, is that your donors are supporting your ministry because they care about what you're doing. And so we never want to put a lid on what they may or may not be interested in, because really, like, the more engaged that they are in your ministry, the more likely they are to stay long-term supporting you. Because as you're living in ministry, I've been working in ministry for 8 years. I think, Aaron, you've probably been doing it for a bit longer than myself, but you get to know these people over the course of a lifetime, really.
Yeah, you really do. And then there's a sweetness to that. I do have people that have been on my team for 15 years. And just like some of them, I really didn't know them early on. And man, they're such dear friends now. Like, even if for whatever reason, God were to call me out of doing the work that I'm doing, I hope he doesn't. I love it. I think it's a good fit. But if for whatever reason he were to, these people are still my friends. Like, they still care about me and my family. And I can tell because sometimes they might reach out and go, hey, how's Marky doing? I know she was in the hospital again a couple of weeks ago. And they're not even asking about the ministry. They're just loving on me and caring for me.
Yeah,
when
exactly.
we first met, we were just meeting each other and I was inviting them to my team. Like, it's amazing how that relationship grows, oftentimes because we are the ones intentionally making sure that we're building it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And this is what the annual plan can do. It can help you intentionally build a loving relationship with this person, intentionally build like a co-laboring relationship with our ministry partners. It's such a gift. It's such a gift. And by doing these plans, the dividends are out of this world.
Yeah. Well, brother, thank you so much for joining me today. I think this is such a good topic that, it just doesn't come very naturally to some of us. And so to hear you speak in and how you're helping to lead others and in developing some good habits and some good organizational structure in the ministry that is ministry partner development, because it is a ministry. I think that's huge. So thank you for joining us today. And thanks for once again being on the SRS podcast.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Thanks for joining us for this episode. We would love to hear your ideas for future content. Please visit supportraisingsolutions.org/feedback to share your thoughts and questions. Also, wherever you download your podcast from, be sure to subscribe for future episodes and come back each week to gain more insight into the process of building and maintaining your personal support team.